welcome Performance Under Pressure online community. It's great to have you here. My name is Mark Bain. I'm the founder and director of Performance Under Pressure. And I thought I'll start up my online courses very, very soon. And I thought, why not get one of our very first participants in our online course? We had a pilot course a couple of years ago, and we had our guest today, Taylor Roland, in that course. And so I thought I'd get him back. We can talk about what we learned in that course and what he's doing until now. So just a quick intro of Taylor. So Taylor is a composer, a performer, an arranger, a content creator, an audio designer, and a music director, and a really nice guy as well. So welcome, Taylor. Yay. Welcome.
Hello.
How you going?
It's going great. It's going great. Yeah, and again, just thank you for taking the time to carefully curate a course like this. I'm telling you, because it's a bunch of really genius tools in a really nice condensed package where you can really dig your teeth into it and start applying things immediately. I remember the very first week we were doing things together, like it was, hey, sometimes it was the day of, because I was doing this at 5 a.m. in the morning, my time,
You were getting up
with you
early.
guys. Yeah, and so basically, like later that day, I would start applying some of those practice methods. And again, yeah, just thank you for doing that, because I feel like there really aren't a ton of things like that around,
Yeah, cool. No, it was great having you in there as well. I mean, thank you for getting up so early in the morning and for, contributing so much to the discussions as well. I think that was really valuable to have you there and to have your contribution. So thank you. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Cool. So I thought we may as well start about your musical journey. So like, tell us a bit about yourself and what you're doing at the moment. And I know you've had a few recent projects. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're up to?
Yeah, so I've just been obsessed with classical music and composition since I was a child. Started the trumpet, and then the trombone, and then piano. And I don't know. I just got really obsessed with writing music and the idea specifically of telling stories through music. Um, and I just was really involved in classical music in the churches, and that kind of turned into a job straight out of high school. Um, yeah, and so I tried to go to school for composition. I got into the Royal Academy of Music in London in 2013. I could not go because I thought I was going to be able to go financially, and then that ended up not being possible. And so here's the deal. This really applies a lot to your course, man, because we were talking about jungle tigering it and all of that other kind of stuff. Like, I straight up just came from the jungle and stayed in the jungle. I never got to go to the conservatory zoo like I really wanted to. I got to uh from like 2019 to 2020 in Boston, like recently. But I mean, outside of that, I've really had to figure out some of that stuff on my own. But even then, you brought better stuff to the table, and you put into words things I didn't really realize I was doing right.
Yeah.
That once you put them into words, I was really able to stabilize them and make sure those were like dependent practices.
Yeah, I remember that as well. You were sending me a message. And you were saying that you had been jungle tigering. You'd been getting out of your comfort zone a lot, but then you could do it more consciously. And you were like, okay, now you can actually put even more effort into it. So yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, well done.
Yeah. So anyway, that's been a really big part of my life, though, is like trying to navigate around not having gone to school. And so far it's gone really great, man. With this audition, I beat two other people who were doctorate holding musicians, and I don't even have a bachelor's. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that was
wow.
right after taking your course. And by right after, I mean within months of taking your course and actually getting back into a practice method, because COVID knocked us out.
Yeah.
And I hadn't played in like a year and a half or something.
Yeah.
And so it was really something. When I started taking your course, actually, that is basically when I got back into being a musician from my first ever in my life break from it. It was kind of a really big deal
Yeah,
for me
cool.
in my
But
journey.
I remember you as well. So I remember you writing a message to me saying that you were doing this audition. And so it's an audition for a church. Could you tell us about like what's involved in a church audition? Because I didn't know before I met you either. So what did you actually have to do?
Oh man. Let's see. So at this one, they wanted somebody who could do both contemporary worship and traditional worship. So they had me do a piano solo, an organ solo, because they wanted to make sure the candidate could handle doing organ stuff for like service elements, like the Gloria Patri, the doxology, things like that.
Yeah.
And then they had me sing and lead a contemporary worship song. Then they had me lead some hymns while playing the piano, just because they're at that time, especially the director had to be the pianist. And then they had me lead a choir rehearsal and an orchestra rehearsal. And then the hardest, I mentally prep, mental prep wise, the hardest one was the interview with the leadership board
You're right.
because you're face to face with 8 people, and
Wow.
uh, they are the most loving people, but not knowing that at the time, it was an austere looking group, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, but now
Wow.
they are my absolute treasured friends, and
I
I've
can imagine.
been
Yeah.
absolutely loving them. Yeah.
And so
So
was the whole process, was it like, okay, you went from one to the next to the next? Like, were you playing all these different styles in the space of say an hour, or like how was it structured? Or was it over a few days or?
so the performance part of it was, oh gosh, I forgot one element of this. Like most of the church showed up for this audition.
Oh,
It was
wow.
just gonna be like the music board and then the choir members and the orchestra members.
Yeah.
But then like a bunch of other people showed up, just about filling up half of the pews of the church. And so I
Jeez.
was just like, whoa. Anyway, all of that was done at once.
Yeah.
The performances and the other stuff. The interview, though, that was on its own separate day.
Okay. Right. So it sounds like a pretty easy process you went through.
Yeah, yeah, except it was a lot of content for one afternoon. Um, there wasn't a whole lot of notice. I had a week and a half. I received a lot of material, and I think one of the biggest things is I was coming out of the shop rusty, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And thinking about what I just did for Holy Week, that audition was nothing, right?
Yeah. Right.
Um, but coming right out of it, man, I was really using your practice techniques fierce, man, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
daily hammering away at this stuff because I saw such potential with this community here at this church, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because again, there was an initial interview before any of the other stuff I mentioned.
Okay.
So like I had been there, I had met everyone. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. And I remember as well, I think I got a message from you. You were like, "Oh, I've got this audition, and it's so much stuff." And I think I just said to you, "It's all good. You've got it. You can do this." You
Yeah.
had. I mean, it was fortunate you did the course, and then you knew exactly what to do and when to do it. So I think that was really fortunate that it lined up perfectly.
Oh heck yeah. Heck yeah. Easy to apply, easy to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. Nice one. Hey, that's really cool. Nice. Um, I was thinking. I think it was probably in the first session or the second session, I talk a lot about what inspires you or what your values are as a musician. So what is your purpose in what you do? Obviously you work in a church. So what inspires you to do your job, to write so much amazing music and to play with so many different musicians in different styles? What is your inspiration?
People now and helping out people. That's that was also one of the things I gained from the course. Your course was like my first time ever being confronted with, hey, why do you do what you do? And even had us like write 50 reasons on why
Yeah, yeah,
you do what you do. And I thought to myself, why do I do this? Okay. And so then I went on a very long journey of soul searching, even after way after the course had ended, looking
Yeah.
for these whys and some main whys. Because when I was growing up, the reason was I had all these intense, just wildly intense emotions and wanted to express them through music, while at the same time I really loved getting my buddies together
Mhm.
and dictating things to be like, you play this note, you play this note, let's jam on this. And so I just there was a marriage of things there.
Yeah.
But, like, it just dawned on me that those things weren't enough anymore when you were asking me the why. And I was just like, doing it for the sake of collaborating with others, and then doing it for the sake of creating something really cool and intense that makes people feel something
Yeah.
isn't enough. What else can I do? And
Yeah.
so now the new mission is literally right here at the church. I am creating an environment like the environments I church music environments I grew up in that were really my home. Those people were my family, the same way your family is
Yeah.
your family,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it just as I've rebuilt this orchestra from 2 people to like 12 to 16,
Yeah.
seriously, I can see, and that is with add-on musicians for like special performances like Easter, but still
Yeah.
the core of them have grown like over twice as much
Wow.
as it used to be. And man, just seeing how they interact with each other
Yeah.
and the kind of food they brought to the potluck and how much that social event meant to them. And these things have nothing to do with music, man. And so like
They do, but
I
they
don't
do,
know
but
how.
they, or they don't, but they do, I think. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All of
yeah.
it relates to all of humanity. I think one of
Yeah.
my notes I put in here is what inspires you as a musician. The little note I wrote was used to be the music itself, now it's the people that make it.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's the
Nice.
point. It's the
Yeah.
people, it's the
Yeah.
food, it's the flavor, it's the spice. And like that's the deal. I've understood the mechanics of music for so long, but not as much the soul.
Yeah.
I don't
Cool.
know how else to explain that, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's so
it was
good.
a big part of what I'm doing at the church is finding how to do that why.
Yeah.
So the new why is the people. How do I make that happen? Like, could I write, classical music or jazz charts or something that raise awareness for a certain cause and like actually raise actual money for people? I just don't know. But I know that starting with community building at this church is really working and it's giving these people a home where there was just dead space in the church otherwise.
Yeah.
You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
And now
Totally.
we're in there
Totally.
for weekly performances and rehearsals and like
Yeah.
it's turning into something, man. And
Yeah.
also, we're
Wow.
doing fundraiser concerts to be able to fund college musicians in the area.
Uh-huh.
So, like, I plan to do 4 of these a year, and then hopefully 2 additional ones with the state college I'm involved with. Long story short, we're looking to be able to raise the funds to like hire a section leader for each of the 4 choir parts, right?
Yeah.
And help actual fund musicians through school while also enriching our church's program and us actually be the ones completely funding this and
Wow.
not be like just offering from the church or something
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because we don't have an enormous congregation, right?
Yeah.
And again, the church is a lovely venue, and I want to see our art and what we're passionate about thrive. And I'm
Yeah.
just it just I love it when right after your course and right after getting it this job, it dawned on me how this is the perfect position to do it in. Mm.
So good. And I think as well, like, I mean, we talked in the courses, uh, cause and effect, like things don't happen by accident. It's like you build up those skills and who you are as well as a leader, I think then that builds the community, which you're doing. So I don't think that's an accident that it's growing and getting bigger and better because you're in charge now. So that's amazing. Really great. Well done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice
Just like
work.
our talks on being a parent, the moment you realize that you're the one now in charge of doing this,
Yeah.
it does change a lot of things, and it
Yeah.
also makes you realize how overwhelmingly important it is too to like really steer it well.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, nice one. I saw on your Facebook feed recently that over the Holy Week you'd written a piece, and you'd performed, like you'd had a lot of performances over the Holy Week in your church, and I saw you wrote a new cantata called Seven Last Words. Could you tell us about it? Like, what's the piece about? Obviously, it's related to Holy Week, so, and to Easter. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, it's basically over. It's kind of a Good Friday cantata, really, but we did it on Palm Sunday, so I just labeled it Holy Week Cantata.
Yep.
Uh, it's the seven last words of Christ, and it's kind of like a requiem in the sense that you take a little bit of text and you just repeat it. And then things change musically. And basically, I just tried to make it as absolutely as dramatic as possible
Mhm.
while making it really accessible for all of our musicians. And I think the other thing is I wanted to make it like actually really touch people.
Yeah.
And I do think it succeeded. This church especially appreciates classical music and honestly, jazz a lot. You'd be
Yeah, cool.
surprised.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, yeah, the pastor wanted to work with me on this, and he said, let's get together and let's come up with something and let's do our own Easter cantata this year.
Mhm.
And so, it went from Easter to Palm Sunday to Good Friday because we landed on seven last words.
Mhm.
I think, we found, I don't know, the Theodore Dubois one or something. And we just said, oh, yeah, let's go with this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, wow. And so how long were you working on that for? Was that like since the start of the year and they made this decision, or is this like last year or as soon as you started the job?
this was great. So this started about 6 months before the premiere, right?
Yep.
And um, the Seinfeld method. So I started it 6 months before the premiere, right?
Yep.
Before that, it was another about, I think, 4 months. It was like 4 months. I was like holed up here in the house during all office hours and literally had permission from the church to be like, no, literally outside of Wednesday night rehearsal and Sunday services,
Yeah.
you just stay home and you write the thing, which
Yeah.
was just a very cool thing.
Yeah.
So I really got a golden opportunity to be like, all right, man, you want to do nothing but create all the time. What are you going to do now? Now they said you can. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and I really had to be disciplined.
Yeah.
Oh, it was hard, man.
Yeah.
Uh, but I did a really good job of not breaking the chain. And
Nice
when I
one.
did break the chain, I tried to make sure I was also doing something useful. I also tried to make sure if I really didn't feel like doing anything, I still didn't break the chain because like I would transcribe I was doing these things based off improvisations, right? And so some of the job was just bulk transcription of a fully finished improvised skeleton, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would just do the boring work, the stuff that's not musical or big decision making at all.
Mhm.
Just putting it into, yeah, you see what I mean? And
Yeah.
that really helped.
Yeah.
That really
Cool.
helped.
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's such a useful strategy as well, just getting into that habit of just chipping away daily at those important things. And then, yeah. And then at the end of 6 months, you've written yourself a cantata and performed it. So,
You're right. You're
yeah.
right. Listen, after taking your course, I quit waiting for like the perfect time
Mm.
to do things.
Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
did start chipping away at it. And it's really nice after 4 days of not wanting to do anything.
Yeah.
And you've got like now 22 measures of finished stuff staring you in the face. And you're like, hey, this is such a great head start. Now I really feel like doing it. Then you
Yeah.
knock out the rest of it.
Yeah.
That's great. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine
big
as well
difference.
as a composer that would be really satisfying because it's there, it's written on the page. It's like
Yeah,
you've got a physical copy of it. I think as a musician, I think that's a little harder because we don't have a tangible copy of what we've improved on. So
you're
then that's
right.
yeah, so that's interesting as well. It's I guess this is where recording yourself as a musician would be useful. So you can have a tangible copy, but for you that's yeah, very tricky as
Absolutely.
well. Yeah,
Recording yourself, and that's totally something I recommend to anyone
yeah,
getting ready for auditions.
yeah,
Just record yourself.
totally,
But yeah,
totally.
yeah, it is hard. Hey, for me as a trumpet player, it is hard to measure success like that in 22 measures. You don't have that because listen, at day 7 of an intense practice routine, and all of a sudden these things that you were great at doing yesterday just can't do them today. At least that was my experience.
Too tired. Go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then, you take 2 days off and then come back to it and things are great. I don't know. I found it so wildly inconsistent. I decided, hey, I need to go into, but also you must understand my standards for playing
Yeah.
were too high. And that's
Yeah.
something else I gained from your course, man.
Yeah.
How to accept and deal with mistakes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
has turned me back into a willing performer again,
Hey,
whereas
great.
I was not before.
Yeah.
And so now I'm performing in community ensembles, I'm performing at the church a lot,
Yeah.
and oddly enough, I'm getting back to where I can perform things, and even my old really picky self would have been
Yeah.
pretty happy.
Yeah.
But it came from letting go of like really worrying about uh failure. Yeah, I rewatched one. I skimmed through the old tapes you sent me of the PUP course,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it totally reminded me of that. And I hadn't remembered that before. It
Yeah. Cool.
reminded me that it takes up processing power,
Yeah.
basically, to worry about the mistakes you might make.
Totally. Totally.
And so, man, that some of the times, that's why some of the times the magic happens when you're just winging it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I forgot that, like, that was also something I picked up from there because, like, with the church thing, it's also kind of a performance to do the rehearsals at night.
Yeah.
Make sure you're not messing up so that everybody else can really lean on your part, being the keyboardist, playing,
Yeah.
for them. And man, Sundays, that's another intense performance. And so I've had a lot of chances in a short amount of time to like consistently apply these things.
Yeah.
And
I can
oh
imagine
well.
as well. Like I noticed that in my job as well, it's like even rehearsals feel like performances because you're performing for your colleagues and for the people around you. So, and it sounds exactly the same for you. It's like every rehearsal is a performance. So,
Yes, it
yeah,
is. And as soon as like I can't explain it because if you let go too much, you start making too many mistakes.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but anyway.
Finding that
Oh,
sweet
there's
spot, that
Tanner.
balance. It's like not too much, not enough. Yeah, it's finding that middle ground.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, nice one.
Um, I digressed a little bit too much.
Nah, I love it. It's all good. All good. So I reckon after doing the course, what do you think the most valuable thing was for you that you took from it, and what might be some helpful advice for anyone that wants to do auditions as well or wants to do more performances?
Okay. So let's see. Oh yeah, again, one of the biggest things, how to deal with mistakes.
Hmm.
That was a big deal. That
Yep.
changed how I approached literally even the mindset of walking on the stage.
Yeah. Cool.
Um, Reflection during practice and rehearsals. That's a big deal. Um, leading these groups because like it's one thing to reflect on your own mistakes and everything, but you've really got to be intentional about listening to an entire group and making note. And I mean this, things have to be written down or you'll forget.
Yeah.
It's
Totally.
also something I picked up from your
Thank
group.
you.
What gets measured gets managed,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yep. Yep.
And so, I picked that up and started measuring things,
Yeah.
even if I didn't feel like it, right? And what you'll notice is that if you start measuring things, your own practice, your own progress, start measuring on a calendar what you're doing, you will start to see patterns. You won't be able to help it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
You
Totally.
won't be able to help it. And yeah, pick that up from your course. Let me see. Compass finding the why is another big thing. Oh, integrating intrinsic and extrinsic motivation.
Hmm.
Because again, jungle tigering it,
Yep.
the motivation to do things, you know, lots of us guys that are involved in the arts like this, it's a really big struggle to want to create and to
Yeah.
want to do things to any kind of deadline, especially like wanting to have, I don't know, a piece of music done in time to rehearse it for an Easter service, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I liked that pressure, but at the same time, none of it was very
Yes.
natural. You're kind
Yeah.
of having to tame something unnatural
Hmm.
to survive in the jungle.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seinfeld strategy was a game changer for me.
Nice.
Uh, oh, learning how relationships influence motivation. That really started to be a big factor in my life when I started working at the church and getting involved with the high schools and middle schools where I go almost every week. I go and I do classes with the kids, right?
Yep.
Like that's been such a big motivator for me. Um,
Fantastic.
seeing them play, working with them, watching them change these past 2 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like I have all these students that aren't really my students, but I'm an adjunct and I just yeah, I got that from your course.
Yeah.
Advice for someone wanting to improve their playing or prepare for an audition: get feedback from as many of your peers as you can.
Yeah.
Find them online. There are horn forums, trumpet forums, there are Facebook groups for anything you can imagine.
Yeah.
Um, have a way to record yourself. Like we're using a lot of processing power when we're playing.
Got our phones.
Yeah, and
We've all got
we
our
all have
phones.
cell phones, right? But like, yeah, I
Mm.
guess so the new advice is get into the habit of recording yourself. When you're
Yeah.
using up all the processing power playing, you're not hearing yourself the same.
Mhm.
And it's always good to hear like a different perspective,
Yeah.
you know, like a microphone perspective,
Yeah.
especially for us brass players, right? You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah. You have so much going on here that you hear, but then out in the concert hall, then it's completely different. So yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
And then I would also advise like have a clear idea of what you're trying to sound like. I talked to a lot of kids who are getting ready for all state auditions and I asked them who they listen to and like what they're trying to sound like and
Yeah.
they don't they don't listen to anything, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, we really need to lean on our oral skills because
Yeah.
that's how we learn to talk. It's such a powerful tool. So
Yeah.
do your listening if you aren't already. Most of the people you probably interact with are already really good about doing that, but I'm just saying
I think
in my experience,
we can all get better at that
yeah.
though. So it's I know I need to listen to more as well. So that's yeah, it's a good thank you. You've reminded me. Thank you. Hey,
Yeah,
it
it
sounds
really
like
helped me, man.
yeah,
I feel like a lot of us are emulators, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. But I think as well, it sounds like in your work as well, you emulate, but then you've taken it to the next level, and now you compose, you write your own stuff, you're improvising, you're doing all these other things as well. So it sounds like you're not just copying, you're taking the next step and becoming your own performer, which is amazing.
And I'm convinced I don't you just especially with teaching and all the students I've ever had, I'm convinced that the same way you and I can talk to each other and improvise sentences, that
Yeah,
if everyone had the right tools, they could do all those same things you just said. It's
yeah,
just I
yeah,
have decided to turn my attention to doing that.
yeah.
And you know what I mean?
Totally,
But
totally.
still, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Wow, thank you so much, Taylor. God, well, it was a real pleasure having you in the course, like having you there, even though you were waking up early in the morning, but you were there and you were present and you were contributing to the conversation. And I think that helped everyone in the course. So thank you so much for being involved. And it's a real uh yeah, it's so humbling for me to hear how much you've got out of it as well. So thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing what you do and working with people and giving us this help.
Oh, always here to help, mate. It's all good. Great. All right, we might leave it there, but thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, it's so great. I'll put some links as well to your YouTube videos and things like that in the comments, just so that people can get in touch with you and hear your beautiful music as well. So thank you so much,
Yeah.
Taylor.